Okay, great. So I'll just get started with the presentation. Can everyone see that okay? Great, thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to the Metacognitive Training Across Virtual Platforms workshop. This is a collaborative work between the Addictions and Concurrent Disorders Research Group and Vigo Lab at the University of British Columbia with the Clinical Neuropsychology Working Group and Health Canada. So before we start, we'll just introduce ourselves briefly. My name is Jane Kim, and I'm a master's student in experimental medicine working with Dr. Michael Krautz in the Addictions and Concurrent Disorders Research Group. I am interested in trauma among vulnerable populations and how to better the system of care with both in mind. And my co-presenter today is Ayden, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ayden Kinchla. I'm also with the Addictions and Concurrent Disorders Research Group. I have a bachelor's of psychology at UBC, and I've worked at Coast Mental Health for 3 years. I'm interested in sort of using these online systems to reach people who otherwise wouldn't have access to treatment. And I see a lot of value in that. So, all right.
So now that we've gone over our introductions, we'll go straight into possibly deep, possibly personal question. How do you cope with life? So about 3 months ago, I posted this tweet saying that I should probably take up knitting as a hobby. I have not yet and will possibly do so after this conference. But I wanted to discuss what your different types of coping strategies are and get a feel of the variety of different types that exist. So we're going to transition quickly into a Miro board I've created that Ayden will post the link in the chat. Okay. Can everyone see my board? Yes, okay. So if you have a Miro account, I think you can log on directly and then type your coping strategy into like one of the sticky notes. Otherwise, if you can just let me or Ayden know, either by unmuting yourself or typing it into any of the chats, that would be great. I did a very far from scientific survey of coping strategies from the people around me. And these are some of the responses I've gotten. Some of the classics, like binge watch a series for the 50,000th time. Scroll TikTok for 5 hours is a very common one these days. Ranting to a loved one or watching cute cat videos on YouTube. Yes. Sorry, I would quit sharing for 20 seconds. Hang up clothes on the clothesline is an amazing coping strategy. I love it. I personally love folding clothes as well, so I relate. Although I am very tiny, so I have trouble hanging up clothes sometimes, but folding them is great while sitting down. Outdoor exercise is obviously a very popular one. I'm not too fond of that myself for many reasons, but it seems great. A lot of people seem to love hiking. Ayden, what are some of your favorite coping strategies?
Hiking is a really big one. Taking a walk is, the sun has such an effect, I think, on people's mood. And it's often something I forget to do with like working inside and going back to school and everything. Something else that I also do that isn't quite as great as I also do a lot of doom scrolling. I feel like that's a very sort of common thing nowadays, especially with sort of how everybody's like on their phones or on the online all the time. Oh, cooking is a great one. I think that's an excellent coping strategy.
I agree. I would totally do that if I could cook. But the idea of it sounds great to me, especially creatively. Okay. Are there any more on Hoover by chance that we've missing? Partying and gaming is a very popular one among youth these days. Boarding and posting. What is boarding and posting? Ayden, do you know what that is?
Boarding, is that
Oh,
like
like
skateboarding?
separate things.
I don't know what posting is. I'm not as hip with the youth as I'd want to be.
I wish I was a youth. Like I'm assuming like posting like online, like filming themselves and posting things. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people have the tendency to like vent these days online, to like people that they don't know in real life. I think that's a very popular anonymous venting mechanism. Okay. Well, now that we've gotten quite a few responses, Grace, I love your cleaning related coping strategies. House cleaning definitely makes you feel better afterwards. You have a great clean house, and you feel better, which is great. Okay, I will transition back into the slides. Okay. Great. Can I double check that people are seeing my slides? Yes, okay. So yeah, that was really great to see how many different strategies you used. I think we have all experienced both deliberate and almost automatic searching for something to help improve our mood when something bad happens. As you may have noticed, most of these things are behavioral, like cleaning the house, partying or gaming, hiking. And some are emotional, like crying or suppressing your feelings. And then some are cognitive, like ruminating or trying to refocus on the positive. I would think that a lot of people actually go for the behavioral ones a lot more. But today we're going to be focusing on the coping cognitive strategies. So usually coping responses to stress are purposeful and controlled to moderate the impact of the stress. But sometimes in cases like ruminating or emotional numbing, they can also feel kind of involuntary, as if they operate outside of our conscious awareness. So these are often driven by cognitive biases that we have that give selective attention, or what they call thinking shortcuts, to one type of information over another based on how we're feeling or our motivational state. So there are a lot of cognitive biases that exist. Some of the more well-established ones include jumping to conclusions, quite literally what it says, collecting little information before reaching a conclusion or making a sudden decision. There is bias against discriminatory evidence, where one disregards or literally trashes evidence that goes against what they believe in. There's overconfidence bias, where one misjudges and inflates their abilities without being objective to themselves. And then there's attributional bias, where one points a lot of fingers and tends to unjustly blame others or external circumstances for negative personal things that happen to them. We're all prone to making these cognitive biases. They can occur in both neutral and disordered contexts. So I, for one, have a cat. I very quickly decided that she is the cutest cat in the world, literally 20 seconds after adopting her. And if anyone tells me otherwise, I will completely disregard their opinion. I mean, this is a bias that I willingly take because my cat is cute. But another common one that happens a lot is like deciding that their day is ruined by like a single event that happens in the morning. And, like Lilo here saying that they should be left alone to die. A little more specific example to substance use, cognitive biases have been found to play a role in maintaining addictive behavior. Attentional bias is an automatic and selective attention towards drug-related stimuli. So one of the ways this is measured is through a modified Stroop test, which you may have seen before. You're typically shown a word, and you're required to say the color of the word and not what the word actually says. So for example, the first word blue in the gray box should be read as red instead of blue. A modified version of this switches colors with substance-related words like fentanyl, and it demonstrates that individuals diagnosed with SUD show selectively slower times to name substance-related words compared to neutral words. This is interpreted as attention having been captured by the addiction-related information, which compromises the intentional behavior of them trying to name the actual color. The same goes for the Stroop task related to opioids and to chronic pain. And this is important because excessive attention to substance-related cues can promote maintenance of addiction, in part by triggering craving, followed by seeking behavior. So if you're attuned to something more, the more it'll have a purpose in your mind, and the more it'll cause you to want to seek out that cue. So we should recognize that cognitive biases contribute to motivation to use, even when people are engaged in treatment. And so this can increase the likelihood of relapse or lack of adherence. And so if cognitive biases precede short-term drug use and relapse, interventions that reduce these biases may also be helpful in reducing that vulnerability. This is extremely relevant in recent times when North America is experiencing an epidemic of opioid overdose deaths and toxicities. So 4 days ago on April 14th, we marked 7 years in British Columbia, declaring drug-related overdoses as a public health emergency. 3 months ago in January, more than 200 people died from a suspected overdose, equating to nearly 7 people a day. This crisis is driven and exacerbated by fentanyl and other synthetic opioids in the drug market, which have toxicities 50 times and higher than that of heroin. This is really concerning now that drug use is used and really popularized as a coping strategy by many people, especially among our youth. And since overdose is really unpredictable in whose life it may take away. The primary treatment and standard care for opioid dependence is medication-assisted treatment. It has the potential to significantly reduce and prevent overdose, but is compounded by high dropout and low retention rates. This mainly comes from the challenges in transitioning out of illicit opioid use. This identifies a need to develop treatments adjunctive to MAT that can enhance treatment and engagement and reduce relapse. So one of these is cognitive treatments that target deficits in executive functions or changes in automatic processing in individuals who use drugs. This leads us to the topic of this workshop, metacognitive training. The first part of the word metacognition is essentially thinking about thinking. So it's known as a specific category of conscious processes that monitor and control how you think. So for example, if you try to memorize a piece of information, you use aspects of metacognition like starting and regulating rehearsal. You monitor when it's time to stop, when you think you know enough, and when you retrieve information when it's needed. So metacognitive therapy is grounded in an information processing model that's involved in the etiology and maintenance of psychological disorder. So this model that they use is called the self-regulatory executive function model, very long name, or called SREF. So just touching on it briefly, the SREF describes that cognition is divided into 3 levels of processing. So starting from the bottom up, first there's a low level processing level that handles routine processing that's more reflexively triggered by incoming stimuli. So processing at this stage may be experienced as automatic negative thoughts with no reason that people usually feel in depression. Then from top down, number 3 is metasystem, or a supervisory executive that consists of stored knowledge and beliefs that you carry with you. So when a stimuli is motivationally significant, this metasystem is the one that searches for the appropriate coping strategy to take. So when Grace knows that cleaning her house makes her feel better, that comes from the metasystem in her telling that's the strategy to take. And then finally, the in-between level is cognitive appraisal, or the self-knowledge level that represents voluntary and more generic plans of coping. And this really depends on the interaction between the first and second levels. So within this second level, there exists a particular processing style called the cognitive attentional syndrome, or CAS. The CAS is known as a syndrome of damaging ways of thinking that really promotes psychological distress. So it consists of things like worrying, rumination, threat monitoring, and overall poor coping strategies that are within this level. So the SREF model suggests that this CAS is activated and maintained by a maladaptive metasystem. So connecting the three levels together, a person's choice of coping strategy is guided by their metacognitive beliefs. So what they believe in their head and know to be true is what guides a person's coping strategies. This has a direct impact on their low-level processing and hence their behavior. So when a stimuli comes in, their low-level processing is immediately goes to a coping strategy that the meta system produces. So when something bad happens, someone might be obliged to say, oh, I should immediately party or play games because that is what my brain knows to be true, known to be helpful. So if their metacognitive beliefs are maladaptive, then likely so is their coping and behavior. Does anyone have questions at this point, or should I clarify anything? Yes, hi, Grace. I'm sorry, I don't think I can hear you. No, sorry.
You're welcome to type in chat as well.
Oh, I heard something.
Yeah, yeah, I think your mic, we can hear some sound, but it's a little bit distorted. Do you want to just type your question in chat and then I can read it off to Jane?
Thank you. Okay, while Grace is doing that, does anyone else have any questions or things that I can clarify at this point? Okay, great. That makes me feel 100 times better.
Grace posted her question. Explain using a word as color of the word.
Right. So I think you're talking about this the Stroop test.
Mm.
Yeah. So the Stroop test, the original one, tries to gain how much attention bias you have towards certain things. So you're shown one word so the first word is blue, but it's colored in red. And you're you're asked to say the color of the word and not what the word like says. So you can't say blue here, you're supposed to say red. And that takes a certain amount of processing time. And so the modified Stroop test shows that when the word is fentanyl, for example, people take a lot longer to say blue instead of like red, for example. So if it was like a neutral word, so fentanyl versus blue, people will take a lot of time to say blue for fentanyl because their attention is so focused on the word itself that's related to addiction. Thank you. I hope that clarifies things. Okay. So going back to where I was, I think I was here. So just in conclusion, in short, metacognitive training, or MCT for short, really aims to modify and reduce the metacognitive beliefs that cause the poor coping strategies. So it focuses on challenging these beliefs as the main root of the problem and trains patients to be aware of and disengage their attention away from the biases that they have. So MCT really focuses on the process of thinking not necessarily the contents, but how you get to your thought and managing them so that they don't induce a pattern of poor coping over time. So the SREF model and the CAS are thought to be linked across different psychopathic conditions. So it's been trialed in a lot of different conditions like anxiety, OCD, depression, and more. It's been widely used across psychosis and has shown promising results in limiting delusions, which mainly arise from distorted cognitive biases, like jumping to conclusions. And it does this by improving a concept called insight, which includes the awareness of illness, relabeling of symptoms as normal or abnormal, and then recognizing the need for treatment and therefore improving treatment compliance. So this is an obvious important factor for a good prognosis in any disease, and so would be a benefit to include in the efforts to increase retention for substance use disorder and other diseases as well that involve connection. So the structure of MCT first started as a group-based therapy and now expanded to include more individualized formats. And it consists of 8 interventional modules. So each module consists with psychoeducational elements and introduces how extreme cognitive biases can lead to problems in daily life. It ultimately aims to plant what they call seeds of doubt through many examples and encourage critical reflection in how people think. Patients learn to detect and diffuse cognitive traps of dysfunctional coping, like avoidance and thought suppression, and to replace them with more helpful ones. So this is the main structure of MCT, and now I'm hoping to transition into some of the exercises I've pulled from MCT. I am hoping for this part to be a little interactive, so please participate if you can. On the next slide, we'll be showing a painting. So your job here will be to stare at the painting for 15 seconds and try to memorize as much of its components as possible and answer true and false questions that come up about the painting. So if everyone is ready, I'm going to pull up the painting now. Okay, so that was 15 seconds, very fast. So after having stared at the painting, how much do you remember? So is the following statement true or false? A woman is holding a red umbrella in the middle of the painting. If you're in one of the chats, if you could type a quick true or false, or speak aloud if you want, and Ayden, you could help take a look. Raj says false. Ray says yes. Can we get one more? False. Okay. So, okay. I'm sorry to Josh and Cheryl, but the answer is yes. There is a woman holding a red umbrella in the middle of the painting. Great. So second question. There are 2 dogs and 1 monkey in the painting. Is this true or false?
All right. 1 false and 1 true.
Very tied. Josh and Gracie seem to be very tied.
Another true.
True. Okay. Well, the answer is true. There are 2 dogs and 1 very faint monkey by the bottom of the painting. Well, I hope this isn't too surprising, but this is pulled from a module called False Memories in MCT for Depression. So this module really highlights that not everything we remember really happened the way we remember it. So it emphasizes that making errors in memory is a very normal thing, and that we shouldn't rely solely on our memories to guide our mood and decisions. So when we feel bad of remembering something bad that's happened to us, doesn't mean that we should immediately go to cope for it. Rumination is often triggered by circling thoughts around a particular distressing memory or memories. This module really teaches patients that practicing the act of remembering the positive events in life is a good way of keeping them with us for longer and focusing on the good over the bad. So our second exercise includes yet another painting, or we're very painting focused today. Can everyone look at the painting and try to guess what the title is out of the 4 options? So it's Awareness of the World, In Remembrance of the Dead, 2 Men Contemplating the Moon, and the Solar Eclipse. If you're up for it, you can either unmute yourself and give your answer and reasoning. If not, you can also type your guess into the chat. Not if you know the actual answer though, but if you have a guess, please feel free. We're getting a lot of solar eclipses.
We have 2 C's and 2 D's.
Ooh.
And A.
Great.
I don't know, Remembrance of the Dead was my second pick, so.
Okay, well, the title is 2 Men Contemplating on the Moon.
Nice job, Grace.
Okay, for everyone that did not pick C, you have a second chance. This is another painting. This could be called The Pedicure, Desperate Girl, Foot That Cannot Be Saved, and Young Troubles. What are your thoughts? Ayden going in with yet another C. C. The Foot Cannot Be Saved is a very popular option.
Right, 3 C's, 1 D.
Okay. Well, the answer is actually a pedicure. So no one knows that, right?
I didn't even know they knew what a pedicure was in those times.
Wait, 1873? Apparently they knew.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, this exercise is from a module called Thinking and Reasoning, where it focuses on the jumping to conclusions bias. So it highlights that people have the tendency to make decisions based on too little information, particularly when interpreting something as emotional or negative. So it teaches patients to gather more information in the collection of positive, neutral, and negative thoughts to really solidify and balance your reasoning. I think with paintings, or with most things, people are driven to respond very emotionally. And this module really teaches people to think about the different ways of thinking before you make a conclusion. So a quick note that I want to add here is the distinction between positive and negative thoughts and beliefs. So positive and negative thoughts are like what we think they are, positive meaning like well-intended and good, and negative being detrimental. In the SREC model that I covered earlier, metacognitive beliefs are distinguished into positive and negative classes, but they don't mean positive and negative like we think they mean. So positive beliefs support engaging in rumination in the CAS as a coping response to negative emotions and thoughts. So for example, some people will believe that they need to worry about their problems to find answers or to avoid being hurt in the future. Negative beliefs, on the other hand, focus more on the consequences of the negative, mainly that they are uncontrollable and cause harm. For instance, believing that ruminating is like an illness that's outside of their control, that will be considered as a negative metacognitive belief. And at the end of the day, both are really related to activating and maintaining the CAS. So the positive and negative really have no distinction here. So next is another video that I hope many of you haven't seen, but it's on the unreliability of confirmation bias. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a sec, and Ayden, if you could play the video. Aiden, if you're saying something, you are muted, but we can't see your screen. I don't seem to be able to hear the sound. Can I confirm with anyone else if they can? No, okay.
Oh, hold on. Let me take a quick look here. Here, let me just stop and restart the screen share.
If you're using the app, you just have to click the share sound button at the end.
Gotcha. All right. Oh. Yeah. Oh, let's. No. It's your password. I need your username. Okay. Um, mm, um,
If you need a little more troubleshooting time, I can also go back to the slides and then we can come back to this when we're done.
Oh, it's your username, administrator.
No?
oh, one.
Okay.
Ah, 1 minute. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, if you could just give me 2 seconds here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Aiden, if it's okay, I'm gonna return to my slides and then we can try this again at the end, maybe.
Okay. Wait.
Yes.
I think I got it. Here.
No. It turns the screen on and then immediately exits.
All right. I think this should work. I don't know if you can hear this. Oh, all right. Sorry, I think I'm going to play it from this. That's good? All right.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
That's right, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
Action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
Great. I hope not a lot of people have seen that one. I know the one with the gorilla suits and the people playing basketball one is a very popular one, but that one I found recently on YouTube and I thought it was very entertaining. I did not notice the victim changing. Okay, and I will go back to my slides. Okay. So as previously mentioned, can everyone see my slides?
I can see them.
Okay, Ayden, can you mind commenting something? Anything random in the chat? Okay, anyways, so as previously mentioned, MCT is a, thank you, transdiagnostic therapy and has been adapted to a variety of different disorders, including psychosis, borderline personality disorder, depression, and more. So these are all available for free on the linked site developed by the Clinical Neuropsychology Unit, which we will post in the chat. Okay. Yeah. So one specific type of MCT that I wanted to talk about is one dedicated to individuals who use drugs as their coping strategy. So this MCT module has been developed as part of our online platform from the Addictions and Concurrent Disorders Research Group, where Ayden and I are from, called RAMP. RAMP is short for Risk Management and Assessment Platform, and aims to increase the aware of overdose risk and decrease the harms that come from overdose through a freely available website. It has modified the MCT versions to be more relatable to the specific patient population and includes really necessary topics like stigma and relapse that are so pertaining to this population. This module and the overall platform of RAMP itself is meant to be dedicated not only to the patient users, but also to their related families and providers for an overall integration of care. So one connected example drawn from RAMP, it comes from the stigma section, which exemplifies how often it is thought that using substances frequently or having dependence is a choice made by deviancy. We go through and try to normalize just how hard it is to decrease or stop using, and that a multitude of factors like previous trauma, family history, and bad experiences with the care system can all lead to someone who appears like they may not be trying to stop, but how that's a really unfair and biased assumption to make depending on their appearance. Then this is connected to the patient or user perspective, where they're encouraged to brainstorm ways to change their negative thought to more neutral, empathetic, and positive ones. So in SUD, it's common not only to be stigmatized, but to stigmatize yourself. So for example, if someone has experienced a recent overdose, they may be urged to think that they relapsed because they're weak in some form or another. Thinking about it as if it happened to a person you care about, users can produce statements that a relapse is frustrating, but ultimately a normal experience that happens to a lot of people, and that there is no shame in seeking support when you want to focus on recovery. Another specific submodule of RAMP is dedicated to triggers and describes them as external and internal things that can remind you of your substance use and activate attentional bias. So users are encouraged to think about the positive and negative consequences of how they face and respond to triggers as a way of challenging their metacognitive beliefs. So if you're triggered every time you're in a specific place or with specific people, what are the consequences of facing them, and what are the consequences of changing how you act around them? The more they come to ask questions and doubt their reflexive reactions to use immediately, the less their behavior will be hopefully impacted and the likelihood of seeking out substances from a trigger. And then finally, a section on relapse describes how relapse can really occur at any time, often when you experience unpleasant feelings, but also when you face pleasant feelings. So when you're happy or when you're surrounded by people that you use drugs with, you might be motivated to use. They increase the understanding of possible warning signs in someone's mood or thoughts that can precede a relapse, and really encourage the user to always be prepared, even in situations that might not seem as relevant. And these are really geared towards when people are using alone to really decrease the risk of overdose as much as possible. So for example, when someone notices themselves becoming more irritable, RAMP guides them to like take a step back and think about why and how they can best manage this change without leading to using alone. Like the other versions of MCT, the module on RAMP also comes with engaging elements and activities throughout the content. So this is an example of an emergency plan. That's a printable worksheet that users can hopefully fill out and monitor as their way of reducing overdose risk when related to thoughts or like moods occur. So here users can fill in potential contacts that they trust and that can reach out for help, brainstorm some positive activities to displace their mood when it comes, and then some immediate action that they can take if they feel at imminent risk. So this is something that we encourage people to carry around with them and to fill out every few months or weeks to really keep themselves refreshed and ready to go. The last version of MCT that we wanted to discuss is one that comes in a mobile app called Cogito or Cogito. We're really not sure of the name. It's a free self-help app developed for people with emotional problems, but that can also be used by people without mental health problems to just maintain and improve their mental well-being. It comes with additional program packages for individuals with gambling problems and for people who have psychotic experiences to be used alongside metacognitive therapy, which will be their main therapeutic thing that they receive. So 2 large randomized control trials with individuals experiencing mental health problems showed really promising results using this app, where the vast majority rated the app positively, and regular users experience significant improvements in their well-being, self-esteem, and depressiveness that are self-rated over time. So the app looks like this. The app is structured as like a library of exercises that are based on evidence-based techniques to reduce emotional problems, such as sadness, loneliness, lack of impulse control, using a self-help approach. So if you can see on the screen, they're divided into smaller submodules like cognitive strategies, positive activities, and communication and interaction, and so on. Each day, a user will receive a new exercise that takes a few minutes to complete. It's pretty much a wall of text that people can read through and check if they read through them. There's an optional feature to enable push notifications to remind you to do the exercises regularly. And you can also write and add in your own exercises that work the best for you. And they say that this allows you to turn the app into your own personal guardian angel that you can carry around and have with you at all times when you need it. The app uses engagement elements like achievement medals and an umbrella metaphor. So every week, the app will tally up the number of exercises that you completed, and your weekly result will be updated every week. They'll be rewarded like a gold medal if they read at least 7 exercises during the week. As they do the exercises over a long period of time, they get this image of an umbrella that will change from red to yellow to green as like a symbol of protection from the rain or risk. And then next, we'll just discuss some of our favorite exercises from this app and their importance.
Hey, these are some exercises in particular that I thought were really helpful. As I was saying earlier, I think one of the main strengths of an app like Cogito is that it's really easy for clients to get access to it. If you've worked sort of in the mental health field, like in social work or healthcare, it's pretty clear how difficult it is for people to get access to sort of counseling and support and stuff. I know when I worked with Coast, I don't think any of my clients sort of had like specified counseling services or anything like that. It was mostly just medication and then like whatever counseling that we as like mental health workers were able to provide. And if you have like 8 to 12 clients you're working with, it's really difficult to provide that sort of one-on-one long-term kind of work all the time. And so something like this being available for anyone to use with just like a phone and internet connection, I think is incredibly helpful. Some of the areas in particular that I think there's a real strength in treating are the communication and relationships section, as well as mood and self-esteem. I know for communication relationships in particular, it's really important for clients to maintain those social connections because those are what motivate people to improve. At least for me, it seems like everybody who had a close relationship to their family or like a good friend, they like an actual good friend that they wanted to improve for, helped drastically in sort of the recovery process. And social skills really aren't something we learn. We're not really taught that explicitly at any point in our lives. We sort of pick it up along the way. And so if you're out on the street, you don't really learn positive conflict resolution techniques. And sometimes, you push people away when keeping them close would do you a lot more help. So having these features available on Cogito, I think would be an excellent sort of supplemental use in sort of a healthcare setting. So that's just my opinion. I'm very curious to hear if you guys have any insight you'd like to share. If you think this would be helpful, what sort of app extra features you'd like to see, any areas in particular you think that people would really benefit from and resonate with.